Firstly, immense gratitude to Social Beat for giving me the opportunity to moderate this session. Dr. Banker, to mean, it means three H's, which is a man of heart, hard work, and humility. So I'm very, very happy to be hosting Dr. Banker today. So Dr. Banker, we'll start, after your formal introduction, I guess we'll deep dive into the topic, which is about how you have basically scaled up the IVF business using digital. And then we'll keep, the session open to question. Our session is going to be fairly conversational. And I would just like to tell Dr. Banker, I know that he's always time crunched. And when you have a doctor here, it's always about a matter of lives. And with him, it is more about matter of bringing new lives into this world and bringing joy into families. Uh, so I shall just begin with formally introducing Dr. Banker. So Dr. Manish Banker is one of the renowned fertility experts in India. He holds the prestigious position of Medical Director at Nova IVF Fertility, one of India's largest groups of IVF specialty hospitals. Starting way back in 1989, Dr. Banker has been one of the pioneers of IVF treatments in India, right? So he has been all over the world, like Germany and Australia, and gotten the best practices from there to establish his IVF practice in India. Well, the achievements of Dr. Banker are far and wide. He is the recipient of the prestigious B.C. Roy National Award. He has been the president of the Indian Society for Assisted Reproduction, a member of the Draft Committee for Art Bill of India, and the Experts Cum Monitoring Committee for National Registry of Art Clinics and Bank in India. He is a regional representative for the International Committee for Monitoring Art, a non-state actor in an official relationship with the World Health Organization, the course director and a PG teacher for the 2-year fellowship in reproductive medicine offered by the National Board of Examinations. I can just go on and on for Dr. Banker, but I guess I'll stop here. Welcome, Dr. Banker.
Thank you very much, Ratna. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're so happy. So, Doctor, even before I start diving into the topic, I would like to know, how do you seamlessly manage being a doctor and running the business?
I think this is the Gujarati blood running in me more than anything else.
Right.
But I think if you are passionate about your work, I think you would also spend time in spreading awareness and seeing to it that you are able to offer it to more and more number of patients. So maybe not from purely a business perspective, but even if you want, if you're passionate, you would always want it to grow and maybe reach out to more and more people. So, I mean, in a sense, it's an extension of what you believe in, and that is what you would always like to do.
That's fabulous, sir. Uh, well, getting started on the topic itself, my first question would be to you: how do you see patient acquisition change for you over the years in this industry? You've been here from 1989, so how do you see that has changed, and how do you now go about acquiring your customers?
I think traditionally medical practice was always a kind of word of mouth. You go and get treated by a particular doctor. While you are admitted or you're undergoing a procedure, your relatives and your friends come to see you. They like the entire experience. You also talk to about this to your friends. And that is how your reputation spread. So it was predominantly a kind of word of mouth. I think in the medical field, advertisement was so-called a taboo when we actually started practice. Then came the era of super specialists, and super specialists actually depended on the general doctors to refer patients to you. So we had a second stream coming up, which was a doctor referred patient, because he was not offering that specialized treatment, and he would refer a patient who needs such specialized treatment to such super specialists. So these two were and will still be the predominant sources of patients in any medical practitioner. But what has changed now is that every patient who gets to know about you through either of these two sources would always go on the net and do a search. Because today it is so easy for everyone to search for a person or a treatment or anything, that for a kind of a reinforcement, they will always search. And there is always a possibility that someone who has been referred to you finds another person on the digital platform whom he or she feels is more suitable to your needs. And you might actually end up losing a patient who needs the treatment, who has been referred to you, but simply goes to someone else who is, because that person is more active. So digital in that sense is an extremely important reinforcement media. You need good word of mouth, you need good doctor referral base, but this forms a very strong reinforcement for increasing your practice today.
Right. So, would really like to know how digital has helped your business, particularly what are the things that you have done, to grow your business from the digital medium?
So two other things have changed in the current times. One is that the reach of the medical practitioner has become, almost limitless. Today, it will not be surprising that you would find patients traveling a few hundred kilometers if they know that they are going to get the right treatment. So in that sense, this is something which can only be spread through the digital media. You cannot have physical presence in all distant locations. So digital primarily helps you in spreading your reach to beyond the conventional boundaries. Second, what I feel the digital media helps you is in kind of positioning where you are. Because every doctor would say that I am offering the same kind of treatment, but it is very important is how you position yourself within that particular treatment space. And this is where digital media plays an immense role, because it is actually a reflection of what you are for the general public. So very careful in how you design your digital platforms, what kind of messaging you do, what kind of information you would like to give out. Are you a simple service provider? Are you the cheapest service provider? Are you the most technologically advanced player? Are you the most cost effective player? So it is very important how you position yourself. And for this, you need to take the help of all the digital platforms. Blogs and something help in a sense for creating brand positioning. You can create treatment videos on YouTube where you can actually showcase what kind of treatments you are offering. You can use this for patient education, because again, positioning yourself as a thought leader or someone who is providing education again puts you in a completely different league. So you can use different platforms for promoting different images or different messages, but everything centered around what you want people to perceive you as. I think that is the crux. You first need to define as to how would you like your patients to see you, how would you like your referring doctors to see you, and then you design the entire campaign, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's a direct Google advertisement. Everything then has to revolve around this.
Sure. So typically, the patients how do you see the patient coming from an online lead versus the patient who's coming through a referral? Do you see any difference in the in their characteristics per se, in the way they are the personas?
Uh, yes and no. Because today what is happening is that it is very difficult. Very few patients come from a single source. So even if you have a doctor referred patient, before he steps into your clinic, he would have searched you on the net. Today it is practically impossible that any patient just walks into your clinic without looking at the net on you. So they will know more things about you than you would have thought of. And maybe at the end of the consultation they will tell you, yes, this is exactly what I'd seen and what I'd expected. So in one sense, digital media sets expectations in patients' minds, and it is very important that you meet these expectations. So the patients are essentially the same, but someone who has come through the digital field comes with a set mind because he has seen you delivering some things and he has come expecting certain things from you. So in that sense, you have to be more careful in handling them. They need much more attention, and they are very, very tough taskmasters.
Right, right. So the digital consumer is basically more aware, rather.
Well aware. Yes.
Yeah, he's completely read and he's come to you. So if you were to look at a time when you did not use digital marketing versus now that you're using digital marketing, in terms of the quantum of business, right? How much do you think it has really grown? Like,
So as I said, it is difficult to pinpoint the increase only to this because this will always be a reinforcing medium. But I do see business coming through this, either purely or this contributing to at least 25-30% of my business, which was
oh,
practically nil when we started this off maybe 6 months. When did we start? Or sometime in March, April, I think it
yes,
was block time
yes,
period, which we actually used to do.
right.
So at least now I have 25-30% of my patients who would have seen me on the digital platform before they walk into the meeting. The other place where this really helps is in follow-ups. Because whenever a patient visits you and you know that this patient is not clear about maybe a thing X or Y, you could send them digital links on what you have prepared for that particular question. So you can actually do a targeted information giving to that particular patient. For example, for us, a patient might be sensitive only on what will be my pregnancy rate. And you cannot explain everything when the patient is in the clinic. So maybe sending specific videos or links, it gives the patient time to go through this. And more importantly, they can view this with their entire family around. So maybe this also helps us in influencing the family to make them come to us. So it is, I mean, it has a huge impact, sometimes not very, very directly tangible, but it does play on their mind.
Yeah. During the pandemic, at least the lockdown period, we saw that even the hospitals and the doctors, and especially in your case where the new patients first come through in consultation, so it's not an emergency, so people kind of postpone visiting, an IVF specialist because it's not the necessity of the hour. So during the pandemic, how did you go about your patient consultation, and what were the steps you took to ensure that business somewhere balances out, in the coming months?
So as you rightly said, IVF is not an emergency treatment. So what happened with the introduction of the lockdown is we practically shut down because all professional societies came out with guidelines that we do not know how the COVID situation affects a pregnancy. So the entire month of April was practically zero. Then we started getting more and more information that this virus does not affect a pregnancy, and we slowly started up. And the entire initial communication was through digital. It was either a WhatsApp call or a Zoom call, and most of the consultations happened on phone or on the digital platform. And once the patient started gaining confidence, they came to the clinic, but very, very restricted clinics, very, very targeted visits. The predominant part of the consultation treatment happened remotely. So we gradually started building up, and now we are practically at about 80-90% of our pre-COVID business, because now people have accepted that pregnancy and COVID are not completely opposite. I mean, they can definitely go hand in hand.
Sure, sure. The other thing that comes to my mind is Dr. Gujarat, being a Gujarati myself, I know we are very language and culture specific, right? And a lot of online communication generally, for any business, especially in the medical field, goes about in English, right?
Yeah.
So I would like to understand, what really your target geography is and how do you manage this, basic issue, because culturally as Gujaratis are more comfortable talking in their language, perhaps. Yeah.
I think this is important. So what we have done is whatever we prepare on YouTube, we always make it in three languages. Everything is in English, Hindi, and Gujarati. The process of shooting, we do everything thrice because we need the entire content in all the three languages. Certain things in English, pictorial, they might understand, but unless they hear the whole thing in Gujarati, especially when they go home, sit with their parents who are much more traditional one than what the current generation is, it is very critical that the communication is in the mother tongue. I always believe you can communicate so much easier. Plus, the patients feel comfortable. They know that this doctor is from your region or whatever it is, and maybe he will be able to understand me better. They are able to relate to you better if they can see and hear you speak in the same language that they can understand. It is very critical that even though predominant content is in English, at least the relevant content has to be in the regional language. It takes that much more time and effort, but I think it is worth it.
Sure, sure. So obviously on your social media, you are going out and about with vernacular communication, right?
Yes, yes.
Right. Also, doctor, in terms of Europe, part of this huge medical community, you have a standing and all of that. So how basically did this community, how did you all keep in touch during, the pandemic? How were you all engaging to understand how to move ahead with COVID?
Actually, I think it has been a huge blessing in disguise. I mean, previously we used to spend practically 50% of our weekends moving around cities, talking at conferences, meeting people. This whole concept of Zoom or this digital conferences has made life so much easier, where the communication can happen more frequently, more effectively, and much more regularly, sitting in the comfort of your room. So I think this has been a huge benefit. Plus, your audience is now no longer restricted to that particular city. Every meeting is practically worldwide. So anyone who is interested can definitely join it. And you can always record and put the content on a digital platform for our viewers to view even at a later stage. So I think from a knowledge sharing and spreading perspective, this is amazing, and I really wonder why we did not catch up on this so much earlier. It was just there for everyone to grab it, but this is superb. This is so much amazing. I think the reach is phenomenal. And one most critical thing, all digital conferences start on time and end on time. That is the biggest plus point. So there are no stretches. It will start on time and it will end on time.
Right. And the cut in the travel is just amazing. I think a lot of us in the business do believe that somewhere there is some positives of COVID. We don't have to be on planes every week.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, doctor, some of these newer treatments, at least I think to a country like India, like egg freezing, for example, right? All of it. So, do you have any plans of, how you are going to go about market? Because you have, first of all, there is a knowledge base required because it's not so prevalent.
I think
So, yeah.
this is where I think the digital platform will play a huge role, because this is a very niche market, and you need to spread this awareness across boundaries, because you will have patients across the country who would need them, and they
Right.
go to the places where they have the best possible chance. For example, recently we delivered a savior sibling who uh, a child created to help a sibling who had a thalassemia major, and we did the IVF with proper matching to have a child who will act as a bone marrow donor. Now, this kind of treatment will never be available in every nook and corner of the city, but there is a huge demand. So this is where spreading awareness and positioning yourself as a place or a clinic which is going to offer these treatments, the potential is immense. And this is where I think this can only happen through the digital platform. There is no other way that you can spread both the awareness and your brand.
Sure. So, doctor, would you then say that, perhaps, building a thought leadership and brand building is perhaps the first step that someone needs to take when they're trying to move their hospital or clinic business online versus directly going into the path of customer acquisition?
I fully agree with this, because see, there are two parts to this. One is trying to build this brand awareness of who you are, and second is then actually spending money to get patients. The second part is the easier part, and I think you can have competitors who may want to spend more there, because then it's a direct question of how much you spend and how much you get. But the more difficult and the challenging part is to build who you are, and that will have a much longer lasting image than the second part. You might then decide to decrease your spends if your awareness is good, if your brand is positioned well. Then what you require is just a presence. You need not enter into this rat race of spending more and more money. But So I always believe that the beginning has to be with deciding who you are, what do you stand for, create a platform which then reflects yourself to your customers, and then start the entire exercise.
What would you think for you has been a platform that you would focus more on? Would it be Facebook? Would it be Google? Anything else that you would think from your experience in the last couple of months?
I think for me, in terms of patient acquisition, Google has been far more successful than all the other platforms. But in terms of positioning, I think Facebook and YouTube's both have been equally good, because you can put your content, you can put your videos. So from positioning perspective, the other media are equally good. But from a direct patient acquisition, Google has been far more successful than the other platforms.
Sure, doctor. In terms of any advice to that you would have for some a doctor or specialist. Obviously, in the last couple of years with Nova itself, I think Nova was first digital, or perhaps 5-6 years ago. So you have had that experience. But if there is a doctor who is just jumping into the digital realm to get leads, right? Always there's an overwhelming sense of, I would say, my job is to be a doctor and look after the patients, right? And this is going to take a lot of my time. So what would you advise? How would you ask them to manage and prioritize, when they are moving digital?
So as you rightly said, our specialty is medical practice. So the first thing that you need to do is find a partner who knows the digital space. Then sit with the partner and devise a strategy, not a short term, but something which is going to last for the next 2, 3, 4 years. And based on the strategy, help your digital partner to design the contents. It is not a one-time process. It is not a knee-jerk reaction to anything. So you need to find someone who understands you well, understands the subject well, because even for a digital partner, a niche medical brand like IVF is completely new for them. So you need to spend time to make them understand what the whole medical treatment means, what is our patient base, what are they going to look for, and then take small steps. Don't really stretch yourself. Take small steps, learn from your mistakes, improvise, adapt, and then keep on growing.
Sure, doctor. That is quite insightful, really. I think now I leave, anybody who has any questions can put that on the chat, and we can have Dr. Banker answer those. Yeah, so doctor, one of the things while we get any questions from there, I would like to know, how do you see your return on investment going for you in the last couple of months that you've become strongly, digital?
Honestly, we are still working on it, but but I think return on investment somewhere between 2 to 3x is the minimum that one should expect, and one would get, because that is the minimum that this kind of platform would definitely give us. But the potential to get a much higher return is still there. I think again it is a question of fine tuning your messaging in terms of geographies, in terms of content, in terms of your audience. So the more time you spend and the more specific you get, your returns will keep on increasing. But I would be happy if I get anything about 3x. That would be a good thing to begin with.
Sure. Thank you, doctor. So how do you see, the transformation in the digital transformation in healthcare itself happening uh, really across the medical field?
So the one challenge that the medical field faces in the area of teleconsultation is the medical legal responsibilities. Because traditionally, you would always see a patient, you would examine the patient and then give treatment or advice. When you do the same thing through a teleconsult, you cannot be that accurate. There are definitely limitations to this, and it is only recently that after the declaration of this pandemic and when the Disaster Act was put into place, doctors have been given medical legal protection if anything goes wrong on a teleconsult. But previously, doctors were not allowed, or they were actually directed not to do a teleconsultation. So that is something which has actually changed, that now have the legal protection of giving a telephonic consultation. So that is something we will need very strong legal backing, that should anything go wrong on a teleconsultation, because it can never be as effective as a first-hand examination. So that is one thing that we need. Second is to promote the concept that you need to pay a doctor even if you're talking to the doctor on phone. Because traditionally in India, a patient has a complaint, you would just pick up the phone, ask the doctor, and that is it. Now, when you ask them that, okay, we will give you the advice, but you need to pay for it too, this is also something patients are finding difficult to digest. So we need to change these two scenarios. But I think it will be a win-win situation, because for everything and anything, you don't need a patient to walk into your clinic.
Right. Doctor, how do you see platforms like Practo, MFine, gaining importance in the present times?
I'm a bit skeptical on those platforms, because again, these are predominantly driven through how much money you want to spend. So a kind of a loyalty base is difficult to create on this. Today, you might be their number one customer. Tomorrow, if someone else pays, you are removed from that space. So, I mean, it does help, but I am a bit skeptical on those. I would rather prefer to build my own brand on my platforms rather than be dependent on someone else. I think it is something which has happened to the other business players on Amazon and Flipkart, that you lose your identity and then you are governed by that particular platform. So the same thing can happen if you're too dependent on such platforms.
Yeah, truly agree. Even in the product space, we see that, brands today, especially in the COVID times, are really even, a lot of brands who used to sell through aggregators have gone about building their own websites and trying to create their own brand name, and even, doing direct sales, because that's one way of building credibility, right? Is to create your own brand in itself. And I would agree with you on that, although it's always important also to be a part of the aggregators, because these platforms then become a medium of search, right?
We cannot ignore them, but we should not be overly dependent on them. That is the only thing. I mean, ultimately, end of the day, the best thing is to communicate with your customers directly.
Yeah. We have one question from the audience, which is, when did you first know that it was a good time to have a digital presence?
I think the whole idea started 5 years back, but it was only during the COVID time, when we had nothing else to do, that I actually started applying my mind to this. So very actively into this field only from the month of March. But I think it was always there. It was only a question of finding the time, the mindset, and the partner.
Sure, doctor. Thank you. Just looking for So I have one more question from the audience. What do you think about patients' behavior, doctor? Are they comfortable being online and today?
Actually, in my field, yes, because IVF is an extremely personal space. So sometimes patients are more comfortable if they're talking to you one-to-one rather than walking into the clinic and taking opinions. Second, as I said, because this is beyond geography, so patients talking from other cities rather than coming into your city, taking all the efforts, trouble, and the fear of COVID. Actually, they're extremely happy doing a primary consult on a digital player, either a phone or a WhatsApp video or whatever it is. So yes, for my field, this is good. But the problem for me is to advise them without examining them. That is the challenge. So again, by and large, the advice would be, yes, this is the possible treatment option. Best that you drop into the clinic once. Because unless you examine the patient, you will never be able to give the correct advice.
Sure. How about smaller towns, which I would call like the next billion audience of Google, right? And I in Gujarat, how do you see the smaller towns or town audiences behave, digitally?
It is still significantly less than the cities. but it is increasing. Uh, Probably it's only a matter of time that they will be more savvy to this. But again, this is where I think regional content will be extremely important, because there you need to be in their regional vernacular language. You talk to someone sitting in a small district or a village in English, I think you wouldn't be making sense there. So again, very important that you reach out to this patient in a language that they can understand.
Also, that brings me to an interesting topic about, the blogs or the content that you put across, right? So being a medical field, some of the technicalities are too technical, right? And then we are targeting audiences which a layman.
This is
So what do you think is the combination to go with, that communication to go with, so we ensure that he gets it, right?
I think one is to try to make it pictorial so that at least images they'll be able to understand. And secondly, if you're able to find someone who can translate a good English content into other languages without losing the context, that is the biggest challenge, because you have people who can translate, but you need to translate the medical text without losing the essence, and that is a big challenge today. But if you're able to achieve that, nothing better than that.
Right. So we have one more question, and it's quite in line with what I just asked you. It is, how do you think healthcare brands should create content? Like, what should be the starting point, really?
So as I said, the starting point is for the person in charge to decide what he or she wants to communicate, and maybe prepare a kind of a bullet point of what the messaging should be. Then we need someone who will put the actual text, and then someone from the creative side who puts it in a fashion which will be more attractive to your customer. So we need the broader content, someone then tying the nuts and bolts, and then someone putting it in a format which is more attractive to the viewers. It has to be a combination of all three. And then if you're able to translate it across languages, that would be the icing on the cake.
Right. Right. So, the one thing with translation is, I think, is also localization, right? The content just cannot be translated. It has to be culturally relatable to the people that we're translating it to as well.
Exactly.
Right. So I'm just looking for more questions if there are any from the audiences. Right. Well, I guess, right. So there's one more question. It says, how do you think, so yeah, sorry. What are the key metrics that you would measure to, basically decide if you're doing well or not on a digital campaign? What would you measure?
So the most important matrix is ultimately how much revenue have you generated through the campaign. And for me, that means how many patients ultimately ended up having treatment with you. That is the absolute bottom line. But there are a lot of intermediate filters that we need to see. First is what has been the reach of your campaign. How many of those patients actually contacted you, either telephonically or through email or whatever? How many of those actually came into your clinic? So that is the first step of conversion. Did you put them off through your initial interaction, or did they find you, I mean, attractive enough to walk into the clinic? And once they walked into the clinic, did they actually then end up having treatment with you? So we need to monitor the entire funnel, right from the reach to the actual patients who ended up having treatment with you.
Right. So there is a certain mechanism that you follow to kind of vet these online leads.
Yes.
You have a call center that,
Yes.
yeah.
So all the calls or leads are monitored. They are also followed up, and we also track as to when did they walk into the clinic, what is the lag time between an initial call and the patient walking into the clinic. And then once the patient walks into the clinic and has been advised a particular treatment, when and did the patient then have that particular treatment also done. So all these things are very meticulously tracked. There is always a 2 to 3 month window, because every patient will not start the treatment immediately on the same day. So we track everything for 3 months, maximum up to 6 months. After that, then we don't track the patient.
Sure. Doctor, one more interesting platform is WhatsApp.
Yes.
Do you see that getting utilized a lot, you know, in your field?
It is being utilized, but it is primarily for asking questions or immediate concerns, not for consults. It is generally, I reserve it for patients who are under your treatment and they want to discuss certain problems. They can put in a message and then you can reply at your leisure, because if it's an emergency they need to call and talk to you. But if it is more generic, something which is not very critical, I mean, it's a good way of exchanging information. The only problem is that the expectations are so high that if you don't reply to a WhatsApp within a certain set of period of time, they get jittery. But everyone needs to understand that you are always busy doing your primary work, and you are not expected to reply to a WhatsApp within a set frame. So maybe 24-hour turnaround time should be good enough.
Sure, doctor. The other thing is, since IVF is such a sensitive topic, right? Do you have communication that is specifically for women there, right? So how do you advise on audience segmentation? I know you would say there are men as well because you look into male fertility as well, but what would be your advice on how one should go about segmenting that audience, because it's such a sensitive topic?
Which is, I think we have discussed plenty of times, how do we decide our segments? And I believe that even though in India, still women are considered to be the more responsible of the two partners for infertility, it is not so. Men are equally responsible. So your campaign has to be directed towards both. This is again the issue of projecting yourself as a thought leader, that infertility is not a women problem, it's a couple problem. This is something which has to go in very strongly. So all your campaigns need to be designed towards the couple. In many couples, it is still the man who is the decision maker,
Right.
though it is the wife who is affected. And to our surprise, what we found that sometimes it is neither the husband nor the wife, but it is the mother-in-law who is the decision maker.
Right.
So I think you need to go beyond this and maybe not be too narrow-minded in defining your target audience. Give out the content. Probably whoever needs it will actually catch it up.
Sure, doctor. I have a question, one more question. It is just before the pandemic, which was happening, consultation for you, digital or across the table? So I guess the audience is asking, what did you do more? Did you do a lot of face-to-face consultation more, or?
Predominantly fair. I think before the digital, before the pandemic, teleconsultation was primarily for patients from abroad. Otherwise, anyone in India, it was always a face-to-face.
Right. Sure. I think we have a couple of more. So one very, interesting rather question is that, culturally we see doctors as being the god, right? Post-COVID, do you see that respect has increased far more?
It has, but people have also, I mean, that particular respect has definitely increased, especially when I see young doctors who are working in COVID facilities tirelessly. And I know plenty because both my sons are into the medical field. They've been working without any weekly offs for the last 4 months. So they are really working tirelessly. And there is a sense of gratitude amongst the population, because I mean, you could see that there are more doctors affected by COVID than in the general population. So, I mean, they have earned that particular respect. Definitely, it has gone up.
Right. I'm just looking for more questions there. Right. Sure. I guess that's about it. Doctor, for me, the respect to you is immense, as I would say. You have coming here, I know how much hard you work, and always it is a matter of lives when it comes to doctors, and you have decided to spend that time with us. So thank you so much. Thank you for the lovely audience and the questions as well.